Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. We all know the story of Macbeth, right? The basics.
Yeah, we've all been there.
We've all been there. But today's going to be a little different.
Right.
We're not just going to skim the surface. We're going to crack open the play and, really see how it works.
That's great.
How Shakespeare crafted this, incredibly intense tragedy. And to do that, we need to understand three things: the form, the structure, and the language. And that's what we're diving deep into today.
Exactly. It's like, appreciating a building. It's not just about what it looks like. It's about the foundations, the architecture, the materials, and that's where the real, the artistry comes through.
It's the why behind the wow.
Exactly.
And we've got some pretty amazing analyses to help us out, some really insightful stuff that'll help us all see the play with fresh eyes. So are you ready to get into the nitty-gritty?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, so first up, the form. Macbeth is a classic example of a Shakespearean tragedy. Right off the bat, what does that tell us?
Well, it tells us that we're in for a particular kind of ride, a story that follows a pretty specific path. The downfall of a central figure, and, it's usually not a pretty one.
No gentle decline here.
No, and what makes Shakespeare's tragic heroes so fascinating is that, unlike maybe some earlier examples, they've got this real psychological depth. It's not just about the fall. We're seeing the internal struggles that lead to it. They're complex characters, often, high-ranking figures, kings, generals.
So they've got a lot to lose. And Macbeth fits the bill perfectly, right? He starts off as this celebrated war hero. Everyone respects him. He's brave and noble.
Yeah, he's got it all.
But then that classic tragic element kicks in. The hamartia, that fatal flaw, character defect that sends them spiraling down.
And for Macbeth, it's that unchecked ambition, his desire for power. It just consumes him and drives him to make terrible choices.
And it's not just about him either, right? The tragic hero's downfall always has wider consequences. It can destabilize an entire society, like we see in Macbeth, with the kingdom descending into chaos after Duncan's murder.
Right, that's a key element. The impact goes way beyond the individual. And if we think about the context of Shakespeare's time, this idea that a person's moral failings could disrupt the whole state was a huge deal.
It makes you wonder what Shakespeare was saying about the connection between individual responsibility and the health of a nation.
Absolutely. There's definitely a lot to unpack there.
So another big thing about tragedies are the supernatural, those prophecies, omens, those eerie figures like the witches and Banquo's ghost. They're not just there for spooky vibes.
Definitely not. They act as catalysts. They set things in motion and foreshadow what's to come.
So in Macbeth, the witches' prophecies, they're like the initial spark igniting his ambition.
Yeah.
But there's always a question, right? Are they dictating his fate, or are they just revealing what's already inside him and influencing his choices?
It's that classic debate, fate versus free will, and Macbeth really plays with it brilliantly. It leaves the audience questioning how much control Macbeth actually has over his actions.
Like, were they just waiting for him to, to grab onto?
Exactly. It's a very potent question that makes you think about human nature and the power of suggestion.
Then there's this idea of tragic waste. It's kind of grim, isn't it?
Well, the term itself, yeah, but it's a crucial element of tragedy. It refers to the unnecessary loss of innocent lives, often alongside the hero. It's the collateral damage of their actions, the ripple effect of their downfall.
Like Lady Macbeth and her children. Their deaths are just so senseless, so brutal. They really underscore how far Macbeth has fallen and the indiscriminate nature of his tyranny.
Exactly, and it makes the audience feel the weight of those losses even more keenly. It's not just Macbeth who suffers the consequences.
And speaking of suffering, there's often a sense of catharsis for us, the audience, even amidst all the darkness.
That's right. Witnessing Macbeth's suffering and his ultimate demise, it evokes strong emotions in us, pity, fear, but ultimately a kind of release, a purging of those feelings.
It's like we're experiencing a proxy emotional roller coaster.
Exactly. And through that shared experience, we're led to contemplate those deeper themes, the human condition, the consequences of moral failings. It's not just entertainment, it's engaging with profound ideas.
And it's not just external conflict that drives these tragedies, is it? There's a whole internal battle raging within the hero.
Absolutely. Shakespeare masterfully portrays both those internal and external conflicts. Internal conflict is that inner turmoil, those agonizing decisions the hero faces.
Like Macbeth wrestling with his ambition versus his conscience, we see it laid bare in those incredible soliloquies.
Exactly. Those moments where we hear his thoughts, his doubts, his fears, and then external conflicts, the physical battles, the confrontations with other characters like Macduff, they propel the plot forward.
So it's that constant push and pull, inner turmoil versus outer pressures, and it creates this amazing tension and complexity.
Right, and it reminds us that these tragic figures aren't one-dimensional villains. They're human beings grappling with their own flaws and desires, even as they make terrible choices.
And finally, with the tragic form, there's often that theme of good versus evil playing out, right? The hero might embrace the darkness for a while, but usually there's a restoration of order in the end.
That's a common thread. While evil might seem to triumph temporarily, the resolution often involves a return to a state of moral balance. In Macbeth, it's Macbeth's death and Malcolm's ascension to the throne that symbolize this restoration of legitimate rule.
It's like evil can't win in the end.
Right?
Well,
It's more nuanced than that, I think. It's about the consequences of choices and the potential for redemption, even in the face of terrible acts.
so that's the blueprint of tragedy, the flawed hero, the influence of fate, the tragic waste, the catharsis for us, the internal and external battles, and the eventual, triumph of good. It's all there in Macbeth.
And for our listeners, understanding these elements, you can move beyond just following the plot and start to appreciate how Shakespeare consciously created this specific kind of experience, this roller coaster of emotions, ideas.
Like having a decoder ring.
Exactly. You start to see the patterns, the deliberate choices, the way everything is connected.
Okay, so we've tackled the form. Now, let's move on to the structure, that five-act framework that Shakespeare uses to unfold this tragic narrative.
Right, that five-act structure, it's like a roadmap for the hero's journey. Each act serves a distinct purpose in moving the story forward and building towards that ultimate downfall.
So Act 1, that's our exposition, right? We're setting the stage, introducing the key players, the setting of the initial conflicts.
Exactly. In Macbeth, Act 1, we meet Macbeth Banquo, King Duncan. And crucially, we get those initial prophecies from the witches that set the whole thing in motion. And, it's interesting how Shakespeare immediately introduces this element of the supernatural right from the start. It creates this sense of unease, like something's off balance.
Yeah, and, you're in for a wild ride.
Absolutely. It sets the tone perfectly.
Then we move to Act 2, the rising action, where the stakes get higher, the tension builds, and our hero makes choices that lead to, complications.
And in Macbeth, Act 2 builds to that pivotal moment, the murder of Duncan. It's the point of no return. It unleashes a chain reaction of consequences, and we see Macbeth starting to spiral. His paranoia grows, the guilt starts to eat at him and Lady Macbeth as well.
It's like they can't undo what they've done.
Exactly, they've crossed a line and there's no going back.
Then Act 3, that's our climax, right? The turning point where the hero's fate is basically sealed.
And for Macbeth, it's the banquet scene with the appearance of Banquo's ghost. It's such a powerful moment because it externalizes Macbeth's guilt. It's not just haunting him internally, it's manifesting in front of others. It's a sign of his unraveling sanity, and it marks a shift from which there's no real recovery.
It's like his world is starting to crumble around him.
And his carefully constructed facade is cracking.
Exactly. So then Act 4, that's our falling action. The consequences of that climax start to unfold. We see the hero's downward spiral.
Right. In Macbeth, we see the forces aligning against him. Macduff emerges as this powerful antagonist fueled by his grief and rage over the loss of his family. The play really highlights the devastating consequences of Macbeth's tyranny.
It's like a snowball effect.
Exactly. One terrible act leading to another, and the momentum just keeps building.
And finally, we reach Act 5, the catastrophe. This is the final tragic act.
Yeah.
The hero's demise and some kind of resolution or restoration of order.
And in Macbeth, Act 5 encompasses that final battle at Dunsinane, the confrontation between Macbeth and Macduff, and ultimately Macbeth's death. The play ends with Malcolm ascending the throne, which symbolizes the return of order and justice.
It's like a purging of the corruption.
In a way, yes. It suggests that even in the face of immense evil, there's still hope for renewal.
Okay, so that's the 5-act structure. But within those acts, we have individual scenes. Macbeth has a specific number of scenes in each act: 7 in Act 1, 4 in Act 2, 6 in Act 3, 3 in Act 4, 9 in Act 5.
And it's interesting to consider how the length and pacing of those acts and scenes contribute to the play's overall rhythm. That sense of urgency, the relentless drive towards the tragic conclusion.
It's like a carefully constructed symphony.
Exactly. Each movement has its purpose and contributes to the overall effect.
And within that structure, certain moments act as key turning points that dramatically change the direction of the play, like the witches' prophecies in Act 1, Scene 3.
Absolutely. That first encounter with the witches, it's not just about giving Macbeth information, it plants a seed of ambition. And the ambiguity of those prophecies, that's what makes them so potent. They can be interpreted in different ways, and that leaves room for Macbeth to miscalculate and make fatal decisions.
It's like they set a trap.
In a way, yes, they give him just enough to ignite his desires, but not enough to fully understand the consequences.
And then there's the murder of Duncan in Act 2, Scene 2. That's a point of no return.
Without question, that act of regicide. It's a violation of the natural order. It unleashes this flood of guilt and violence that stains the rest of the play. And the psychological impact on Macbeth and Lady Macbeth is immediate and profound.
They can't escape it.
No, it becomes part of them.
And then the appearance of Banquo's ghost in Act 3, Scene 4.
No.
It's such an unsettling moment.
It really is. And it's so effective because it reveals how deeply Macbeth's actions have affected him. It's a visible manifestation of his guilt, his fear, his declining mental state.
It's like his conscience is coming back to haunt him.
In a very literal way.
Finally, the murder of Macduff's family in Act 4, Scene 2. That's a turning point for Macduff's character.
Absolutely. It transforms him from someone who's opposed to Macbeth politically to someone driven by this deep personal need for revenge. He becomes the embodiment of that righteous anger that will ultimately bring Macbeth down.
It's like he's become an avenging angel.
In a way, yes. He
Yeah.
represents that force of justice that will restore balance.
So we've looked at some key turning points, but are there any broader patterns that stand out in the overall structure of Macbeth?
Yes, definitely. One thing that many scholars point out is that Macbeth is actually quite short and fast-paced compared to some of Shakespeare's other major tragedies like Hamlet or King Lear.
So it's a more condensed experience.
Exactly, and that contributes to the play's intensity, that sense of relentless momentum towards the tragic end. It's like watching a train hurtling towards a crash.
You can't look away.
Right. It draws you in and doesn't let go.
Another interesting pattern is that sense of a cyclical structure.
Yeah.
Right? The play starts with Macbeth being celebrated for suppressing a rebellion, and it ends with him being overthrown as a tyrant, leading to the restoration of a rightful king.
Exactly. It's like this return to a state of normalcy. It highlights the fact that Macbeth's usurpation was temporary, unsustainable. It was always destined to crumble.
It's like a disruption followed by a correction.
Precisely. It reinforces that idea of a natural order that might be disrupted but ultimately prevails.
And one more structural element that stands out is how Shakespeare alternates between scenes focused on Macbeth's actions and scenes that show the suffering of others.
Right. We see Macbeth's growing tyranny juxtaposed with the anguish of characters like Macduff when he learns of his family's murder. It broadens the scope of the tragedy. It shows us the ripple effects of Macbeth's ambition, the human cost of his choices.
It's not just about him, it's about the impact he has on everyone around him.
Exactly. It's about the interconnectedness of things and the far-reaching consequences of actions.
So we've seen that the structure of Macbeth is far from random. It's carefully designed to build tension, highlight pivotal moments, and underscore the play's central themes. Now let's turn our attention to the third crucial element, the language. This is where Shakespeare's genius really shines.
Absolutely. Shakespeare's use of language in Macbeth is incredibly rich and multi-layered. He uses a vast array of techniques to create vivid imagery, evoke deep emotions, and explore profound ideas.
Let's start with imagery. One of the most prevalent images in Macbeth is the contrast between light and dark.
Right. Light and dark function as these potent symbols throughout the play. Light often represents goodness, innocence, truth, order, while darkness is associated with evil, ambition, secrecy, and moral decay.
We see that so clearly in Macbeth's desire to keep his black and deep desires hidden, and in Lady Macbeth's chilling invocation to thick night to conceal their bloody deeds. It's this constant interplay between light and dark that visually and metaphorically reinforces the play's central conflict.
And that contrast also creates a very specific atmosphere, a sense of foreboding and unease that permeates the entire play.
It's like the play is shrouded in shadows.
Exactly.
Another incredibly powerful image is blood. It appears constantly after Duncan's murder.
Blood becomes this visceral symbol of guilt, violence, and the irreversible nature of Macbeth's actions. From his desperate question about whether all great Neptune's ocean can wash away the blood on his hands to Lady Macbeth's haunting delusion of the damned spot, it serves as a constant reminder of their crime.
It's like they're stained by it both literally and figuratively.
And it's interesting how the intensity of the blood imagery escalates as the play progresses. It mirrors their growing psychological torment, the weight of their actions pressing down on them.
It's not just human elements that provide powerful imagery. Shakespeare also uses vivid descriptions of the natural world, right? Storms, unnatural darkness, strange animal behavior.
Right, and those disruptions in nature, They reflect the moral and political upheaval caused by Macbeth's regicide. It's like the natural world itself is reacting to his transgression, to this violation of the established order.
It's like the universe is out of sync.
Exactly. It emphasizes the magnitude of what he's done.
Beyond imagery, Shakespeare also uses a lot of symbolism. The dagger that Macbeth hallucinates before Duncan's murder is a great example.
It's such a potent symbol. It represents his ambition, his lust for power, but also the violence required to achieve it. It highlights that internal struggle he's experiencing, the pull between his desires and his conscience.
So it's like a manifestation of his darkest impulses.
Exactly. It's a visual representation of that internal conflict.
Then there's the recurring symbol of sleep.
Sleep represents innocence peace, a clear conscience. Macbeth's realization that he has murdered sleep after killing Duncan speaks volumes about the psychological toll of his actions. He's lost that sense of inner peace, that tranquility that comes with a clear conscience.
It's like he's condemned to a state of perpetual unrest.
Precisely. He can't escape the consequences of his actions, even in sleep.
And the recurring image of ill-fitting clothing is interesting. What's Shakespeare getting at there?
That imagery of Macbeth's robes not fitting properly, it symbolizes the illegitimacy of his reign. He's taken the throne through violence and deceit, and it doesn't truly belong to him. He can't comfortably inhabit that role.
It's like a visual metaphor for his unease and the precariousness of his position.
Exactly. It subtly reinforces the idea that what he's gained is not rightfully his.
Shakespeare's also a master of using metaphors and similes to create these vivid comparisons.
Absolutely. Like the simile comparing the two warring armies to two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. It paints such a striking picture of exhaustion and futility.
It's so vivid. It really captures that sense of desperation and pointless struggle.
And metaphors like Macbeth's bleak reflection on life as a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury signifying nothing. It encapsulates his disillusionment, his despair, his sense that everything is meaningless.
It's like he's lost all hope.
And Lady Macbeth's chilling advice to look like the innocent flower but be the serpent under it. That's such a brilliant use of both simile and metaphor. It exposes the deceptive nature of their ambition, the way they're hiding their true intentions behind a mask of innocence.
It's like a warning about hidden dangers.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of seeing beyond appearances.
Then we have personification, where human qualities are given to inanimate objects or abstract ideas.
Like when Banquo refers to the moon as she, or when we hear about wicked dreams abusing sleep, these instances of personification contribute to that overall sense of a disturbed and unnatural world that permeates the play.
It's like everything is off-kilter.
Precisely, it reinforces that sense of a world out of balance.
Now, a significant portion of the play is written in iambic pentameter. What's the effect of that particular rhythmic pattern?
Iambic pentameter, with its daddy-um rhythm, it creates a sense of formality and elevated language. It's often used by the noble characters to convey a sense of authority and sophistication.
But Shakespeare doesn't always stick to that rhythm, does he?
No, and that's where it gets really interesting. When he deviates from the iambic pentameter, it often reflects a character's inner turmoil or a change in their emotional state. When Macbeth starts to lose his grip on reality, his speech sometimes becomes more erratic, mirroring his fractured mental state.
So the rhythm itself becomes a tool for revealing character.
Exactly. It adds another layer of meaning and complexity to the language.
And then there's prose, that more conversational, unmetered language. When does Shakespeare use that?
Prose is often used by characters of lower social status, like the porter, or during moments of extreme emotional distress or mental decline, like Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene. The shift from verse to prose can highlight a character's diminished state or create a specific comedic effect.
So it's a way of differentiating between characters or signaling a change in a character's mental or emotional state.
Exactly. It's a subtle but effective technique.
We also see rhyming couplets at times. What's their purpose?
Rhyming couplets, those two lines that rhyme consecutively, they often signal the end of a scene, providing a sense of closure. They can also be used to emphasize a particular statement. The witches often speak in rhyming couplets, which gives their pronouncements a distinct, almost incantatory quality.
It's like a spell or a curse.
It sets them apart from the other characters and adds to their air of mystery and power.
And finally, linguistic techniques like antithesis, alliteration, and repetition. What do they contribute?
Antithesis, like the witch's famous line, fair is foul and foul is fair, it highlights those central themes of ambiguity and moral inversion. The juxtaposition of opposites forces us to question our assumptions about good and evil.
It's like everything is turned upside down.
And alliteration and repetition, those are used for emphasis. They create specific sonic textures and enhance the overall atmosphere of a scene.
So Shakespeare's language isn't just decorative. It's working on multiple levels to create meaning, shape the atmosphere, and develop the characters.
Exactly. It's a crucial tool in his arsenal.
So how does all this language actually work to create that profound impact that Macbeth has on us?
Well, fundamentally, it creates the atmosphere. Shakespeare's choice of words, often steeped in darkness, evil violence, and the supernatural immediately creates this sense of dread and unease. Phrases like instruments of darkness, they evoke a specific mood and set the tone for the entire play. And the very rhythm and sound of the language, the iambic pentameter, the unsettling rhymes of the witches, the alliteration and sibilance, it all contributes to that overall effect.
It's like he's weaving a spell with his words.
In a way, yes. He's using language to create a specific experience for the audience.
And the language is also crucial for character development, right?
Absolutely. The soliloquies give us direct access to a character's thoughts, their motivations, their fears, their changing psychological states. And the dialogue between characters, their choice of words, their tone, the structure of their sentences, it all reveals their personalities, their relationships, and the power dynamics at play.
Like Lady Macbeth's language.
Yeah.
It's so assertive and commanding at the beginning, but by the end it's fragmented and full of guilt.
Exactly. Her language mirrors her mental and emotional deterioration. It shows us how deeply her actions have affected her.
And of course the language is crucial for exploring the play's major themes.
The pervasive blood imagery, it underscores the themes of guilt and consequence, the corrupting nature of violence. The contrasting light and dark imagery highlights the battle between good and evil and the insidious influence of ambition. And the witch's frequent use of equivocation, those statements with double meanings. It explores the deceptive nature of evil and the way that appearances can be misleading.
That's like they're playing mind games with Macbeth.
They're certainly manipulating him, leading him down a path of destruction.
So we've seen how all these elements form structure and language. They're all intricately interwoven to create the power and enduring appeal of Macbeth. Understanding them gives us a much deeper appreciation for Shakespeare's genius.
Absolutely. It allows us to see the play on multiple levels and to appreciate the deliberate choices that Shakespeare made in crafting it.
So to wrap up our deep dive into Macbeth, we've explored its form as a Shakespearean tragedy with all its classic elements. We've examined its tightly structured 5 acts and those crucial turning points that propel the narrative forward. And we've uncovered the richness and complexity of Shakespeare's language, that evocative imagery, the potent symbolism, the masterful use of rhetorical techniques.
And for our listeners, remember that understanding these elements enhances your experience of the play. You start to see those layers of meaning, the deliberate craftsmanship behind every scene and every line.
So, as you continue to engage with Macbeth, consider this. How does the interplay between Macbeth's internal psychological disintegration and the external forces at play, the societal upheaval, the supernatural influences, how do they all contribute to his tragic fate? And what does that tell us about the nature of ambition and the consequences of our choices? It's a question that continues to resonate with audiences centuries after Shakespeare wrote it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.